Alabama Crimson Tide is where we start. Perfect 10-0 in the SEC 10-game schedule. Tack on the SEC championship game against Florida. Tack on 2 college football playoff wins against Notre Dame and Ohio State. 13-0 as Nick Saban claims another national championship. And good gracious, we got some turnover, baby, because not only do we lose a Mac Jones and Najee Harris and Alex Leatherwood, Heisman Trophy winner Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, stud player, Patrick Surtain, but also on the sidelines. So all of a sudden we say goodbye to Steve Sarkisian, Kyle Flood, Charles Huff, Jeff Banks. Big time turnover, especially leaning towards the offensive side of the ball. But we've got some big names coming in. Bill O'Brien, new offensive coordinator. Doug Marrone, new offensive line coach. Goodness gracious, we're just getting NFL head coaches coming in here. That's even a step up from the old like Butch Jones, Charlie Strong kind of thing. Just moving up in the world. And so as we start to look at our big questions here, I will, if y'all are curious about Bryce Young, I will entertain those questions. I'll tell you, I'm pretty confident. I'm probably more interested in seeing how the wide receiver position shakes out just because we lost so much there. And it'd be easy to say, hey, John Mechie III is just going to step right up and be awesome. And I'm not sure that he's going to be the guy. And I'm not sure that, that's necessarily something we should put on him or the role that he fits in that offense. We will see. As I was doing my research, I had this burning question. Do we need to see a dominant Alabama defensive front, or does that even matter anymore? Thinking back to the days of Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, just year over year. And then I went back through my notes and I was like, Christian Barmore was awesome. We saw like Will Anderson be a stud at linebacker as a freshman. Malachi Moore, obviously not defensive front, but a secondary player who came in kind of in that nickel spot. Christian Harris was another new young star. So as we're tracking the development of Pete Golding, and sort of his relationship within Alabama's defense, I'm curious to see how that group shapes out. And as football is changing, is it even realistic for me to expect Alabama to have a 2015 kind of defense? So the wide receivers and the defense are my burning questions for a team that without a doubt will be top 3 going into next season. Where are y'all looking at for spring headlines and news coming out of Tuscaloosa?
The wide receiver, I think obviously is huge, and just the amount of players that they are replacing on the offense is something that's important. But one thing that you did touch on that I'm interested in, that I think the spring is important for, is Bill O'Brien, because Bill O'Brien is taking over this offense. He's going to be the primary play caller, replacing Steve Sarkisian, who did a fantastic job calling plays, who replaced Lane Kiffin, who did a fantastic job calling plays. And I know Bill O'Brien has his coaching history as being the offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator for the Patriots when, before he took the Penn State job. When he took the Penn State job, he was calling the plays at Penn State. But he's been at the Houston Texans. He's been the head coach and the general manager. I'm not sure how involved he could be on a weekly basis in putting together an offensive game plan with the roles that he had with the Texans. So I think that for Bill O'Brien, this is an important spring just to kind of get back into the swing of things, of putting together a game plan and calling plays and trying to figure out what guys are working. Because let's be real, since the last time Bill O'Brien was a primary play caller, the offenses across the country have changed a lot. So I think that he's kind of got, this is just as much a spring practice for him as it will be for the players learning the plays and learning the playbook. And I do agree with you, like with the Bryce Young situation, I mean, they haven't named him the starter yet, have they? But it's like, it's pretty much assumed that Bryce Young is going to be the starter. Is there somebody on this depth chart that I don't know about that has a legitimate shot to wrestle the job away?
I think it'll be Bryce Young. I mean, Paul Bear Bryant, their grandson. I think it's going to be Bryce Young.
I mean, Bryant's not beating out Bryce Young. Bryce Young's a 5-star, and the things that excite me about Bryce Young, honestly, Bud, come from some of your scouting, just talking about his accuracy, talking about the way that he moves, the way he's able to process his reads. Like, he just sounds like he's ready. I mean, sounds like he's got at least the tools to be able to go out and execute if given the opportunity. Yeah. I mean, he was more polished as a passer coming out of SoCal than DJ was at Clemson. Maybe ceiling is a little bit lower than DJ's, just physical ability. DJ's obviously built like a tight end, but super accurate, hits guys on the run, processes quickly, quick release, mobile in the pocket.
he can run a little bit, but like he's not somebody Bama's going to be running because he's not that big of a guy. But I mean, just the guy can play the position. He's the least of my worries with Alabama.
What I think is a really interesting dynamic with the Bill O'Brien hire. Typically, if you see this offense struggle, the quarterback probably would get the blame. But with Bryce Young's pedigree, with the expectations of him being this outstanding prospect, like I think if the offense sputters or doesn't look great, I think because Bill O'Brien already, is it fair to say he's unlikable? Like that's the persona of him. Like in NFL circles, it is for sure. Like everyone every year was like, how does Bill O'Brien have a job? Deshaun Watson saving him, can't get past the next level. So like he comes in with kind of this reputation that he's trying to overcome. If the offense struggles, I think it'll be interesting that he'll get some of the criticism more so maybe than the quarterback would, which, you know, if you had Sark back, that wouldn't be the case at all, or Lane Kiffin. And the bar has been set now with this new evolution of Nick Saban's squads that there'll be a top 5 offense. And I'm curious, Tom said something about Bill O'Brien not having called plays. He's also been out of college football for a while, period. And there are different schemes that are run, you know, different that are different than what you'll see in the NFL, even that he'll have to adapt to that. Now, I'm sure he's doing film study and he's got a lot of time to be able to do that. But just the adjustment back to the college game, I think will be interesting here too, with less time to work with guys. You don't have, you can't have your quarterbacks in meetings for 4 or 5 hours every day in the offseason, which you would do in the NFL. So it's going to be an adjustment period for him. So I think it's a fascinating dynamic of Bill O'Brien probably being the bigger question mark than who's going to replace Mac Jones. It's crazy how that's kind of the case that we're dealing with.
You know, I don't think he carries the same stigma in college. I mean, certainly very unliked in the NFL, as you mentioned, Danny, but he also doesn't have a massive talent advantage in the NFL like he does at Alabama. I mean, Alabama has the best talent in the country by a pretty good margin. They out-talent every single team on their schedule. Pretty much whatever you call is going to work. I don't really have any concerns about Bill O'Brien because I'm pretty sure that, you know, Nick Saban would have called up Bill Belichick to cross-reference, hey, like, is this guy good? Do you think he can work in college? He worked at Penn State pretty well. Again, Alabama has insane talent. And to me, this is sort of like the Nick Saban offense now, right? It didn't change all that much going coordinator to coordinator to coordinator to coordinator. They ran a little more hard play action last year. I think it's because they had an insane offensive line and they could block for, you know, forever. I don't really have that many concerns about Bill O'Brien. I also think that he's a guy that does like to use the tight end position. And they have some tight ends who we like a lot in Jaleel Billingsley and Miller Forrestall. So with those guys, you know, I think that maybe more multiple tight end sets for Alabama early on to help out Bryce Young, perhaps running the football. They bring back, you know, pretty good offensive line. A couple guys are departed, but they don't have, you know, it's not like another team that we're going to be talking about where they have to basically replace everybody. You know, I don't have that many concerns about the offense. Can John Mechie be a 1? I think so. Can he be a Devontae Smith 1? Probably not. Right. But like, that's not a realistic expectation. The guy just won the Heisman as a receiver for the first time since, I forget.
It's Tim Brown. But I think you bring up a good point with the tight ends in Bill O'Brien's offense, because I think that there's a good chance that Jaleel Billingsley is this season's Kyle Pitts, just the way that he's with his talent and the way he's likely to be utilized in a Bill O'Brien offense. And another like coin in the pro side for Bill O'Brien as an offensive coordinator and a play caller. There's only one coach I know of in history who made Christian Hackenberg look good, and it was Bill O'Brien.
True. Who do you think comes out of that running back room? Or do you think it's just going to end up being by committee? Because they've got dudes and they got a lot of options. And I think Robinson was probably the number 2 last year to Najee Harris. Is it just sort of like everyone moves up in line, or do you see somebody taking a big step forward? Sanders,
I think Robinson is probably the guy. He's clearly the dude they trust, right? Pass protection, catching the ball, you know, hitting the right hole. There's a wild card I think you could look at in Trey Sanders. Like people in Florida have known about Trey Sanders for a long time, played at IMGs from Port St. Joe up there in the Panhandle. If Trey can finally stay healthy and do his job, he has some ability that I'm not sure that Robinson has, but Robinson's more of the known quantity. So I would expect to see Robinson early.